A new report is out on the death of Jeffrey Epstein, and it shines some light on what exactly happened that day. Reuters writes, in a scathing new report, Inspector General Michael Horowitz singled out 13 Bureau of Prisons employees for, quote, misconduct and dereliction of their duties, end quote, saying their actions allowed Epstein to be alone and unmonitored in his solitary cell inside Manhattan's Metropolitan Correctional Center from 10:40 p.m. on August 9th, 2019, until he was discovered at 6:30 a.m. hanging from what appeared to be a linen or piece of clothing. He also criticized the Bureau for other serious operational flaws, such as failing to upgrade the camera surveillance system and understaffing its facilities. Quote, the combination of negligence, misconduct, and outright job performance failures documented in this report all contributed to an environment in which arguably one of the most notorious inmates in BOP's custody was provided with the opportunity to take his own life. Here we have what is allegedly a picture of the cell, and you can see that there are linens all over the place. It wouldn't be particularly difficult to make an apparatus to harm yourself. Even if Jeffrey Epstein did in fact kill himself, which remains questionable, that doesn't mean there wasn't a conspiracy to let him kill himself in order to get the cadre of elites who visited his pedo island off the hook. I mean, there were serious red flags about his mental state. On July 23rd, 2019, he was discovered inside his cell with a piece of orange cloth around his neck that was similar to the kind he later used to hang himself. So right there, you already have evidence that this man is trying to end his life. Continuing on, BOP, which is the Bureau of Prisons, psychologists determined that for his own safety, he needed to be housed with a cellmate, and over 70 employees were notified about the requirement. But when the U.S. Marshals warned on August 8th that they planned to transfer his cellmate to a different facility, he was never assigned a replacement and instead was left in isolation with an excess of blankets, linens, and clothing, some of which were, quote, ripped to create nooses. So at this facility, the Manhattan Correctional Center, 70 staff were told to not let Jeffrey Epstein be alone and to constantly check on him because he has already attempted to take his own life. And what happens? They leave him alone with extra linens. And get this, the report also found that Epstein drafted a last will and testament on August 8th, and on August 9th was permitted to make an unrecorded and unmonitored phone call in the evening before returning to his cell, and that evening is when he killed himself. So he's literally drafting his will the night before, and then the day of makes an unrecorded call. Two of the guards at the prison, Michael Thomas and Tova Noel, were tasked with checking on Epstein every 30 minutes to make sure he was okay, and of course they didn't do that and then falsified the records to say that they did. Now, I'm not saying these two had any ulterior motives. All I'm going to say is we need to check their bank records to see if there were any large sums of money transferred to them. The way I see it, there are three possible scenarios. Scenario one, you have incompetent prison staff who are sleeping on the job, distracted on their phones, and not checking on him every 30 minutes like you're supposed to. You also have Epstein wanting to avoid rotting away in prison for the rest of his life. And then you have the stars aligning where he is unsupervised for a long period of time, his cellmate leaves and isn't replaced, and there are extra linens in his cell, and he creates an apparatus to kill himself. No conspiracy, just government being irresponsible. In scenario two, you have complicit staff who were either told to stop checking on his cell or were paid off to do so. In this scenario, you also have Jeffrey Epstein wanting to avoid rotting in prison for the rest of his life, wanting to avoid the embarrassment of all the crimes coming to light during the trial. And in this case, there is a conspiracy, and it's that he was allowed to take his own life. They intentionally removed his cellmate, they intentionally left extra linens in there, so they effectively gave him the means to die because they wanted him to. In scenario three, you once again have complicit and corrupt staff who did not check on his cell intentionally, but in this scenario, Epstein actually wanted to live, However, he was killed in his cell and they framed it as a suicide. You can let me know which one you think it is. All I can say is that a lot of powerful people wanted this man dead, and now he is. Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's accomplice, has been sentenced to 20 years in prison, and if anything were to happen to her, I think that would remove all doubt as to which scenario is accurate. One more point here, Horowitz's report identified at least 2 other unnamed employees who may have committed criminal conduct by falsely certifying inmate counts and rounds, but prosecutors declined to file charges. In a similar manner, the 2 employees who were supposed to be checking on the cell that night entered into deferred prosecution agreements and got away with community service. So in summary, this report details a whole litany of failures at the Bureau of Prisons, from not replacing his cellmate with a new one, to leaving all the linens in there, to one of the cameras watching his cell not working, to the staff not checking on him. All of these things had to line up to allow this man, again, one of the most infamous prisoners of all time, to kill himself. I suspect this isn't the end of this story, as a lot of questions still need answering, but if you found this video interesting, please support me by hitting that like button and subscribe to the channel where I cover all the interesting stories happening around the world. My name's Ryan, this is NewsRye, I'll see you in the next one.